Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. We have Andy Hoffman again. He's going to bring us up to date on what the market is doing, what the economy is doing. He is from Miles Franklin, and I'm very happy to have him back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Welcome back, Andy.
Well, thanks for having me again. I mean, it's early Monday morning, and anyone who's watching the markets now or has been for the past month realizes that we are, I'll say it unequivocally, it started. It started weeks ago. It is the big one. This will not be reversed by anything a central bank can do. It will not be reversed by anything a politician can do. This is going to be the crash to end all crashes. You saw this weekend, my God, Deutsche Bank, which if you look at its stock and its credit default swaps, it's the next Lehman. I mean, it's way below its 2008 lows. It's in free fall. It's going. I think it's going to be the next Lehman sometime this year. And they actually wrote a note to the ECB begging them to stop reducing interest rates because it's killing them, which obviously means their derivatives book underlying their cratering business is collapsing. So again, you're seeing the news everywhere of everything falling apart. In fact, I wrote today, well, we'll go on to the big news in the gold market today. I'll keep everyone in suspense.
So isn't Deutsche Bank, do they have a huge exposure to derivatives?
Yeah, they are the biggest derivatives purveyor, either on the planet or maybe second to J.P. Morgan. I think they're actually bigger. And look, the fact that their stock has fallen to way below the 2008 lows, and their credit default swaps are now surging as companies like Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers did back in 2008 shows you they're a goner. There's I'm telling everyone now, they are so a goner, it's not even funny. They're going to be the next Lehman Brothers if someone else doesn't beat them to punch. Of course, they're far bigger than Lehman Brothers, and because of their far bigger derivatives book, it's going to be a domino effect that's felt for a generation.
So what's very interesting about all of this is that the United States came out with their statistical numbers, and they're telling us that unemployment is at 4.9% right now. But unemployment has dropped, and they're trying to make the case that everything is fine. But we see so many different things in the economy that are completely falling apart. The Baltic Dry Index fell below the barrier of 300. Trucking is down. Rail traffic is down. Retail stores are closing. How can they even make the case that the economy is fine at this point?
Well, actually, the Baltic Dry Index, if you could believe this, is down 62% in the last month. and when you talk about an all-time low, I mean, the all-time low goes back to when it started in 1986, and now it's way below that all-time low, and it's free falling. And that is a perfect example of why back in October, meaning what, 4 months ago, I wrote an article said the worst global economy of our lifetimes. But that was before the Baltic Dry Index fell 70% or whatever it is. That's before the oil price fell 30% and the CRB commodity index 20%, before the stock markets crashed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, before a lot of these currencies had their next leg down, which, by the way, coincided, as I said they would, with A, the Chinese yuan devaluation, and B, the Fed's insane, idiotic raising interest rates by even a quarter point. In fact, today, my article that's going to come out in probably an hour or so is titled, "Will Wednesday," meaning 2 days from now, be the Yellen reversal? Because she has to do her semi-annual Humphrey Hawkins testimony on Capitol Hill. And I think, especially with the markets the way they were Friday and today, if they can't turn it around in a big way by then, she's going to have to say something that dramatically changes the course of financial history in saying, yeah, we are now done with rate hikes and actually considering going the other direction, which is inevitably what she's going to do. But as for how they could say the economy is better, no one even listens anymore. I wrote years ago, 2 years ago, I said the last thing is going to be when the BLS, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, loses all credibility in its job report. And we've basically done that. And the icing on the cake was, of course, Friday's report, where they claimed that the unemployment report fell to unemployment rate fell to a multi-year low, while every aspect of the economy is falling apart. And of course, the rest of the unemployment report was as bad as ever. I mean, we're talking about horrible jobs. There's a 2.1 million job seasonal adjustment. All the jobs that were there were the low-paying minimum wage jobs. And by the way, if you go to Peter Schiff's latest podcast on it, and he breaks apart some of the more of the myths, that come out of that jobs report. But the point is, there's a reason why I called the jobs report the Island of Lies a while ago, because it's so politically motivated. They will just say anything. But at this point, after especially the last few months as jobs reports, it's so totally discredited. My view is that maybe even now, maybe even the next one or two reports, no one's going to even care anymore about the job report. After my whole life of waiting for Friday, Jobs Friday, no one will care anymore because it'll be as meaningless as the most meaningless of economic indicators.
How is the central bank, the Fed, going to explain that they increased interest rates and now they have to do a complete reversal? Aren't they going to lose all credibility for this?
Well, they already have lost all credibility, and they've lost credibility simply for raising rates by claiming that everything's good when as soon as they did it, everything collapsed even further. But the way they're going to do it is the way they always do it. They're going to make up an excuse and say it's someone else's fault. Again, it's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault. It's something that they couldn't see, or it's something that's overseas, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone will. I'm sure they'll bring up China. It's China's fault. But the fact is, it's the whole fiat currency regime that's the fault, and they are the leaders of that fiat currency regime that have destroyed the entire world. So they'll find an excuse that they'll say it's something that's not our fault, but they'll do it. And if the markets, we're down 200 points the other day, we're down 300 points today. What if we're down 300 tomorrow and 400 the next day and 500? Then they'll just come in with an emergency QE4. But again, when you have Deutsche Bank, the biggest bank in Europe, writing a open letter to the to the ECB and the Bank of Japan saying, stop lowering interest rates, you're killing us, you realize that the game's over, because even the banks that have always wanted it the most no longer even want it because it's killing them. There's nothing central banks can do. And every central bank in the world is going to implode in the next, I don't know, year. I can't see it. Again, I'm not a big one on timing everything, but the quote, that I've been saying for the past 3 or 4 weeks now is, I don't know how, when exactly, but I can say in my view, there is a 0% chance that we survive through 2016 without the next 2008, sweeping over the earth. And again, this one is going to be 1,000 times worse because there's no safety net. There's no central banks. There's no QE. Well, they'll do QE, but it won't work. All it could do is create hyperinflation. This is the year. There is no way we are getting through it without something horrible happening. And I mean really horrible.
Even if the central bank, comes in and we have to lower the interest rate, maybe even go negative like Japan now, and they start QE4, this is going to make the situation even worse than it is right now, because people are going to look at this and say, okay, we've seen this before. This is going to end up bringing us to absolutely nowhere. The economy will not improve with QE4.
That's my point. I mean, Bank of Japan said we're not going to lower rates to negative, and then they did it a week later. And then 2 days later, when the market kept falling because no one's listening anymore to what they're doing, they said, oh, but we're going to do more QE, we promise. And we're going to do even lower interest rates, we promise. In fact, they even copied Mario Draghi. They said whatever it takes, and they said no limits. They're just so desperate to get anything to work. But the point is, no one is listening. And it's going to be, and the coup de grace for the whole world is going to be when Janet Yellen admits it and stops pretending this ridiculous, the economy's improving, et cetera. When she comes out and says, things are not so good, we're going to have to rescind that rate hike and go negative. That's going to be the coup de grace for everything. But even worse, when she realizes that it won't work, because everyone's under this belief. Actually, no one is under this belief because no one believes it's going to happen. But I think if you asked everyone today, what do you think would happen if the Fed went to negative rates and QE4? They go, oh, well, that would save the markets. Everything will be great. And what I'm saying is, I don't believe that's the case. That's exactly what the ECB just did. It failed. That's exactly what the Bank of Japan just did. It just failed. And if they try to do that here, there's no telling what the ramifications will be on political, economic, social, financial. Every aspect of the world is going to be negatively impacted. And it's not going to result. I can guarantee the one thing it will not result in is the 1% getting richer because the stock market goes up while the economy still goes down. Not going to happen.
While we see all this happening, precious metals, gold, silver, they're starting to move up now. I mean, today I think gold is up $37 already.
Well, it's up 16, or it's including from
right,
Friday's.
Yeah.
close. They don't do it exactly from the morning, but it hit 1197 earlier. Now it's 1191. Silver is up. Silver just broke above its 200-day moving average. And again, everyone knows me. No, I'm not a fan of miners just because to me, they're just risk that I don't need to take. You can take it if you want to. But the fact is that the Huey is up like 40 or 50% in the last couple of weeks, shows you that the big money is now running into the paper assets. They know the end game is here. They know that the cartel is losing and it's time to get into the sector. Of course, once the institutional people get really scared, they're going to start clamoring for the physical gold and silver. And when they do, then it's going to be truly the end game. And in fact, everyone should put on this screen, by the way, the ticker PHYS. That's the Sprott Physical Gold Fund, which just acquired the Spicer, the GTU, the Gold Trust. And now all of a sudden, the discount to net asset value is infinitesimal. The point is, institutional money is buying this thing so hard that it's almost at a premium to net asset value again. And if it goes there, a few percent above that, you can bet Eric Sprott, who runs that fund, is going to do a massive offering. And that's when the institutional money starts coming in and buying. And that's when you have the chain reaction across the physical space. And again, I said earlier in this call, I said, we'll keep some suspense about what's going on, the big news in the gold market today, which I have two articles coming out today. The second one today is called The Biggest News in Gold Market History. That's today. That's what I wrote today. And it's because I saw that 5 or 6 miners quit the LBMA today. They just quit and said, we're done. We're no longer trading here, including Rio Tinto, which is the second largest miner in the world. And clearly, in my mind, it's because they're sick of the manipulation of paper prices. Even Rio Tinto, which doesn't do much in the silver market, has to be aware of last week's horrendous, heinous silver fixing, where they fixed the physical price 6% below the paper price for no reason. And you saw the largest silver miner in the world complaining, and then bam, all these miners are leaving the exchange. In other words, the miners are finally starting to fight back. And once they start to fight back, there's going to be no one left for the paper manipulators to sell to their fake contracts. So I believe that this is the beginning of the rapid realization that the paper market is a fraud and it's going to go down for the count. We will have cash and carry gold and silver markets at some time in the future, because like the central banks, the future markets, particularly for gold and silver, I believe will be permanently destroyed.
So what's going on with the COMEX? I mean, are they going to have a problem delivering the gold at some point?
Of course. I mean, look, no one can believe any number specifically they put out because, heck, A, they're criminals, and B, they're run by criminals, and B, they have a disclaimer that says the information we put out may not be true. But the fact is, you put together a mosaic of all the things that you see around you. And when you see that the gold and silver registered inventories of the COMEX have both, not one, but both, gone down to nothing. There's literally almost no gold and silver left. And there's far more, as we know, that's demanding the delivery of that little that's there than ever before. And look at the fundamentals. Now you have exploding prices, et cetera, et cetera. So again, what's going on at the COMEX and the LBMA? They're hanging on to their manipulative thread, their manipulative grip on the markets by a hanging thread right now. And, for all the people who thought it would last forever, the London gold pool lasted only 7 years. This horrendous covert manipulation has lasted, 10, 15 years? It'll all be gone. Will it be gone tomorrow? I don't know. Will they be able to hang on for a few more months, a year? I don't know. But my guess is, given what I believe is going on in the economy in the world, I don't believe that they're going to survive this year either. We'll wait and see. But either way, how anyone could not be buying some gold, silver right now. Look, if you're in the rest of the world, you can't buy it. Either it's at record prices. Heck, in Canadian dollars, it's almost at a record high already. But in the Eastern world and even a lot of the Western Hemisphere, it's not even available. You can't buy it. But here you can still buy it at subsidized prices below the cost of production. And it will go quickly. Remember, we had a major silver shortage back in July, August, September of last year. I assure you, in this environment, we will have the same thing. And then eventually we'll have like we had in 2008, where we ran out of absolutely everything around the world, gold and silver. It will happen, and it may happen now. I don't know.
Yeah, I think what's happening in this country is that we've been brainwashed that, the dollar is the all-powerful currency, and gold, you don't really need it. It looks good on jewelry, but you really don't need it, compared to other countries where they realize and they understand that the gold and the silver that is actually money, and you need to hold on to that. And here, I don't think people really understand that, and I think it's going to change. And when people start waking up, I think it's going to be a little too late for them, and because gold prices are going to start to skyrocket, and you just won't be able to get it at some point.
Exactly. Yeah, I call the gold owners the new 1% because that's all there's going to be room for. There's not that much gold out there, and the East and the West is taking it up and have been taking it up like it's going out of style, which it is going out because you won't have any supply of it anymore. And only a handful of people around the world are going to actually have enough of it when it runs out, because it will run out. It will be the greatest, let's call it in financial terms, short squeeze in history because there's going to be nothing for sale. And, that's exactly what happened in 2008. And we've had the warning bells when we had shortages in 2011 and 13. And man, we had a huge silver shortage last summer. And, but this time around, there's going to be no central banks to save the day. All they're going to do is make it worse. They'll create the conditions that start hyperinflations. And there won't be gold and silver. It just won't be there. So either you buy it now or you don't buy it and you don't get a chance to buy it. That's my view of what's going to happen.
A lot of people ask me, where should I look to see that things are falling apart, and what part of the economy? Is there something specific I should be looking at? Is there any part of the economy that people should be looking at to see and to realize that, oh yeah, this is it. It's starting to come down now, and now I should start to worry?
Well, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, when you're talking about commodities at 40-year lows and currencies around the world at all-time lows and high-yield bonds collapsing and Treasury, look, remember the Fed, quote, raised rates a month ago, and now the 10-year Treasury yield is en route to maybe breaking its all-time low in the next week or two. That's how fast the rates are falling. Credit default swaps are exploding. Banks are finally falling apart. The whole tech bubble, too. The unicorns, all these, they're all falling apart. And not just falling apart. We're talking about most of the market is amidst 2008 right now. It's just been they've held the major averages up, or as I call them, the very, very last to go because they're the most manipulated. But now they're all falling apart too. There's nothing to look at that isn't screaming this. And again, when I say that Deutsche Bank is telling the central bank, stop lowering rates because you're killing us, it shows you that that's how close we are to the end. I mean, of course, if they raised rates, they would kill them even faster. But there'll be no rate hikes in history. There'll never be a rate hike again until we have hyperinflation, at which point it won't matter. Everything will have been destroyed. So you can look, there's nothing you can't look at that's not saying the same thing right now. And frankly, if you want to look at one thing, just look at the Dow. The fact that they can't rescue the Dow, that it keeps plummeting, shows that they're losing control. The fact that gold and silver prices are surging despite every effort to hold them down shows they're losing control. And of course, as far as economic data and commodities and currencies and every other market, they've already lost control.
When Deutsche Bank finally completely collapses on itself, what kind of ripple effect is this going to have throughout other banks?
And that's assuming Deutsche Bank is the first one to go.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of others. Look at the whole Italian banking system. They're halting them limit down every day. It may be Unicredit, the biggest bank in Italy, that goes first. It may be one of those French banks that have exposure to the pigs. I mean, they're saying that Greece is falling apart again right now. But if Deutsche Bank goes, I mean, Deutsche Bank is, I don't know the numbers, but I would have to guess 2 to 3 times larger than Lehman Brothers. I mean, easily. They're the biggest bank in Europe, and they have the biggest derivatives book. So, it'll cause a daisy chain of derivatives failures around the world. And there's nothing to save them this time. Nothing. No bailouts, no TARP, no bail-ins, nothing. It will be chaos. They will try them all. They'll do their negative interest rates and QE10 and all these kind of things. Everything will fail. And the scary thing is we have all these elections going on from here to France next year. I mean, they're having this Britain exit, Brexit vote probably this year. I mean, we're going to see splintering, major political and social splintering in the next 12 months. Catalonia, Spain will definitely secede this year. That's a quarter of the Spanish economy right there. I mean, we're talking about really, really bad things are coming, and I'm not happy about it. I've just been telling you this is what's going to happen for a long time. And you know what? Now people will start to listen.
When you say bad, like how bad is it going to get in this country for the everyday person?
Don't know, but all I could say is when we've had our standard of living has been the highest in the world because of the fraudulence of the dollar being the reserve currency. And as the dollar loses its purchasing power and its domination around the world, we will have the biggest fall of social of standards of living of any country in the world. So you can say, wow, it's really going to be bad in Greece. Yeah, but Greece's standard of living has already collapsed. we're still out there, people getting, liar loans for houses and subprime loans for cars and student loans and all kinds of things that they couldn't afford anywhere else, and that they're now going to have to pay back, et cetera. And our government is the most indebted in the world. So again, we are going to have the biggest fall of any country. What will it be like on average? I don't know. There's a worst case scenario, which is pretty darn bad. There are best case scenarios, which are significantly better. But even the best case scenario is going to be a major change of life. I mean, picture this. Picture if 2008, picture how your life was in 2008, when your stocks are crashing and your jobs were being lost. Picture that, but not going away in 3 months because the Fed gets the market back up. Staying that way for a long time and getting worse. And then people not like career politicians like Bush and Obama and Hillary Clinton, people who are really dangerous getting around and getting in office around the world and doing very dangerous things in the name of nationalism.
Do you think at this point, I mean, last time when you mentioned 2008, we saw the bailouts where, they gave trillions of dollars out to different banks to save the banks and nothing for the people. This time there are no bailouts, and this time they're looking at bail-ins. So this time it's going to be, God, I can't even imagine, like 20 times or 100 times worse than it was before, because this time with bail-ins, they're going to shut down the banks. They're going to take people's money.
Well, that's the thing. They can't bail out because there's no will for it and there's no money for it.
Yeah.
And of course, if you bail in, bailing is even worse than bailing out, because a bailout is an indirect tax on people, via inflation. But if they actually said, well, we're going to bail, we're going to take all the IRAs, which they will, and I'm screaming to everyone, I've been for years, get out of freaking IRAs before the government takes them. If they do that, you're going to have massive social unrest and political uprisings, revolutions. I mean, there's ramifications. You can't just be like, oh, well, we're taking your money and moving on. You take the money, and this place will have a civil war here. It'll be like the Russian or French Revolution. So, it sounds good on paper, just like saying, oh, well, they'll confiscate the gold. Yeah, you confiscate the gold, and the next day it becomes priceless around the world, and people will kill for it, and they'll kill anyone trying to take it from anyone, because the dollar and all the currencies will be worthless. So again, the more draconian they try to be, the more political and social ramifications there are going to be.
Do you think the U.S. is going to look like a third world country when this whole thing falls apart? And is that the level of our lifestyle? Is that where we're going to end up?
Well, again, that's the worst case scenario. I can't say what scenario it'll be, but when you're talking about falling from the highest standards of living in the world to at least the mean, and usually you overshoot, especially when you're liquidating the biggest debt in history, it will certainly feel like the third world compared to where it was today, and certainly where it was a decade ago. Will it become like being in a poor villages in Africa? I don't know if it gets that bad, but there's going to be a lot of parts of the country that are going to feel that way. And certainly the big money centers where everyone has believed that they're invincible, the Californias and the New Yorks and the Washington, D.C. areas, they're going to be decimated in terms of standard of living and the social and political environment. So I don't know what the worst case scenario is. All I do is tell people, prepare for it. I mean, buy some gold, food, all that kind of stuff. Be ready, network with your neighbors, have a game plan. Because if you don't, and the worst case scenario does come, you're going to die. I mean, you're literally going to die. So you have to prepare now. And for God's sakes, if you're in a place like America where you can actually still get precious metals at these ridiculous prices, what on earth are you waiting for?
Andy, I really appreciate you being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Thank you for bringing us up to date on what's going on. You do have a free seminar coming up. Can you tell people a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Myself and Andy Schectman. Andy Schectman is the president and co-founder of Miles Franklin. So he's been selling precious metals for over 2 decades. And together we've been traveling around. We just started traveling around the country. We just do these free, completely free. There's dinner included. It's a Q&A rap session. They last 3-4 hours. And you just come and you ask us anything you want about anything, and we talk, and it's an enlightening night. And all the people in the room are similarly, like-minded people who think just like we do. And we just had our first one in Denver, where I live here, 2 weeks ago, and we had 130 people. Well, our next 2 are scheduled. The first one is very soon. It's Friday, February 26th in Minneapolis, which is Miles Franklin's hometown. The second one that we have scheduled is Wednesday, March 16th in Phoenix. And all you have to do is, if you want to go, is email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com or call us at 800-822-8080.
And what I'll do is I'll put the links for those two seminars at the bottom of this YouTube video so everyone can find out where it is, and it'll make it easier. You can just click on them. It'll bring you right to it, so you can find the number in the email there. Andy, thank you once again for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I really appreciate all you do. Thank you.